The base level bundles of the Fanatec CSL DD 5Nm and Moza R5 are both roughly the same price, offering roughly the same thing. A sub £400 starter kit ideal for beginners to get into mature, realistic PC sim racing games. A lot of people will pass through these two on their journey. Offering a basic motor, a basic wheel and basic pedals, it's just what you'll need for stepping foot onto the likes of iRacing, Le Mans Ultimate, Assetto Corsa and so on without overcommitting. But which one is the better choice? Which will give you more road to run in the future? What are the pros and cons of the two bundles? I'll try to answer these in a simple, easy way to help you get going. Before we get into the video, watch the whole thing through before making your decision. Affiliate links to these two bundles and all the other equipment featured can be found in the video description, as well as other necessary information. Affiliate links may grant me a commission if used by you before purchase at no added cost to you. If you find this comparison useful and informative, then using those links directly supports me, and thank you to those who've done so in the past. If you have questions to ask about anything at all, or want to share your personal experiences, you're absolutely welcome to do so in the comments. Some viewers may also note that the odd video shot here or there features Fanatec's older QR1 quick release system due to footage collected before Fanatec rolled out QR2 on all fronts. That's just due to the footage being useful still. Lastly, my personal bias does slightly favour Fanatec. They were my first serious sim racing setup, so there's history there, but hopefully you can see I'm fair to both. So first up, a quick summary of the main talking points ahead. Both the CSL DD and R5 are considered low-level force feedback. However, the R5 is distinctly more powerful than the CSL DD 5Nm. Both bundles have very basic brake pedals, which are by far the biggest weak point, but the R5's standard brake is nonetheless better of the two due to a software advantage. Both bundles sell pretty easily and for a fair price on the second-hand market, so if you sell them off to upgrade later on, or just decide this whole sim racing thing isn't for you, you won't be completely out of pocket. Both bundles are great for starting PC sim racing without overspending. The choice between them mainly boils down to what you think you might be able to spend in the near future. If your budget will allow for it over time, then the CSL DD will be the better choice due to cheaper upgrades that you can buy sooner. But if your budget is locked at £400 maximum with no room for upgrades anytime soon, then the slightly better performing R5 will be the preferred choice for the time being. The Fanatec CSL DD 5Nm bundle features a wheelbase, wheel and pedals. For those brand new to this, wheelbase just means the motor, the square bit that produces the force feedback that you feel, and that's what the CSL DD actually is, the cuboid shaped motor that you see before you now. The wheel is a 300mm diameter, fully round wheel with a rubberized rim, featuring an LCD display at the top. The pedals consist of just a throttle and brake, but are made almost entirely of metal. The Moza R5 bundle is very similar. The R5 is the name of the wheelbase itself, also cube-shaped, but more compact in size than the CSL DD for sure. The wheel features a 280mm D-shaped rim wrapped in leather. The pedals are also made almost entirely of metal. Now, if you're new to sim racing, you might notice straight away that they look so similar. Who did it first? Well, Fanatec was the original with the CSL DD back in 2021. Moza sprung up with the R9 as the new alternative in 2022. I won't go as far as saying Moza were copycats, but there are obvious distinct similarities in design between the two systems, especially around the pedals. However, unlike most knockoffs, Moza actually did a very respectable job. They earned the right to be considered and have continued to generally try quite hard since. Fanatec are a long-standing name in sim racing, though they hit hard times in 2023 and 2024, being bought by Corsair, following which things seem to be back to normal and in safe territory again. Both bundles feature detachable, quick-release wheels with wheelbases that can accommodate better models from their respective ranges, so you are not forever stuck with the wheel that you get in a bundle if your tastes and budget allow in the future. And both Fanatec and Moza have their own hearty selections to choose from. You can put Fanatec's €1,500 BMW M4 GT3 wheel on the CSL DD, Or you can put Moza's £1,300 Lamborghini Essenza wheel on the R5, if you so wished. You can also put third-party wheels on both systems, but it is generally simpler and cheaper to do this with Moza than it is with Fanatec. So if you had your eyes on a specific wheel that isn't Fanatec or Moza branded, keep that in mind. The quick release mechanism on the CSL DD is carbon fibre reinforced polyamide, i.e. not metal, whereas the R5's is full metal. Personally, I find no issue with the CSL DD's quick release system. It's solid and strong, it may not be metal, but it's certainly more than enough for the kinds of forces that you'll be dealing with through this wheelbase. But if you'd be more reassured by Moza's full metal quick release, I can understand that. Doesn't bother me though. One consideration that might also be important to you is what you're attaching your new bundle to. If all you have is a desk, then the R5 comes equipped with a very strong full steel table clamp in the box, included in the price. Fanatec sells a table clamp separately, but it's mostly plastic and not known to be rock solid. In both bundles, the pedals are also not very floor friendly, not without some bodging to get them to stay flat to the floor. So in both instances, you will find a wheel stand at the very least very useful. I would recommend one ASAP, if not from the get-go. So let's talk about force feedback. Both the CSL DD and R5 are what you consider low-level force feedback wheels, but keep in mind that this is low-level by sim racing standards. For many of you, they will still be pretty intense and invigorating, particularly if you're of a youth age, but even within that bracket, the R5 is a step above the CSL DD. There's no mistaking it, the R5 is definitely stronger than the CSL DD, and as a result, feels more detailed, exciting and immersive. Between the two of them, the R5 is the one I'd choose on force feedback quality and depth alone. I do feel like I can be more controlled and precise with the R5, and I'd be able to do faster laps more consistently with it than I would with the CSL DD 5Nm. The CSL DD in standard form gives what I would class as the bare minimum of force feedback to graze the edges of an immersive, realistic experience. It's got the bare bones you need to drive racing sims, whereas the R5 is definitely meatier, allowing for an experience that is markedly more mature and serious. A bit of that difference in power is due to the R5 just genuinely being a stronger motor than the CSL DD. A bit of that is also due to the Moza steering wheel being 2 cm smaller, which helps make things feel stronger due to the smaller radius, but there's a clear winner between them in terms of power, at least in their basic form without upgrades, as I'll touch on later. Both the CSL pedals and R5 pedals are basic and utilitarian in what they offer, supplying a super basic throttle and a super basic brake, the actual bare minimum to get by. They are at least fully proportioned, so if for example you've been running a Logitech G923 or something else with somewhat miniaturized pedals, you'll welcome the much larger, more grown-up pedals. They also both possess the ability to be horizontally adjusted in pretty much the exact same way. As stated earlier, Moza really did follow Fanatec's lead almost step for step when they built these pedals. In terms of outright performance in the sim though, the Moza R5 Bundle pedals are again better than the CSL pedals for one crucial reason. You are able to map the brake pedal curve in Moza's PC software, which can allow you to overcome some of the drawbacks of such a crude brake pedal where muscle accuracy is hard to come by and even harder to build. You can't modify pedal curves in Fanatec software, not presently. That means that if I'm tasked with driving a Formula car without ABS, and I have to choose between the R5 or the CSL DD bundle, I would choose the R5 due to having much more control over what the brake pedal does in the software. However, much like the wheelbase, the story of the pedals is far from over as soon as you include upgrades. Finally, the steering wheels, lest we forget that this is the part of a bundle that you'll actually spend most time in physical contact with. It's pretty important. Fanatec's bundle features the P1 V2 wheel, whereas Moza's features the ES wheel. Between the two, I do much prefer the grippier hand feel of Fanatec's rubberized P1 V2 wheel. I do find it more comfortable and plush feeling, despite being flimsier in some respects. I like the eye-catching LCD on the top centre of a wheel rim, it's kinda cool, but Moza's ES wheel does come across as sturdier and sportier to use overall, mostly due to the smaller size and chunkier hand feel. The P1 V2 shifters are quieter than the ES, so if you're noise conscious, then that's also worth considering. Speaking on a general level, the base R5 bundle performs better than the base CSL DD 5Nm bundle. If I had to choose between the two of them on this basis alone, the R5 is the better choice and justifies its mildly higher price. But now we must talk about upgrades, because they will be a massive factor in which one you side with, especially if money's tight. Fanatec's CSL DD 5Nm bundle is the most basic bundle they offer, but there are two significant upgrade add-ons available. The Boost Kit, which upgrades the power of the CSL DD from 5Nm to 8Nm, that's a 60% power increase, although in practice it feels like the power doubles. Then there's also the Load Cell Brake Pedal Kit, which replaces the brake pedal entirely with a very precise pressure-based system. Load cell brakes remain one of the biggest impact upgrades you can make to a sim racer's setup. Both of these upgrades snap the CSL DD's performance from bare basics to fully featured, and they can both be added at a later point in time with considerable ease. The Boost Kit costs €100, and its effect on the force feedback cannot be overstated. It's an entirely different animal altogether. It's a must-have for every CSL DD sooner or later. The load cell brake pedal costs €80 and will have a profound effect on the maximum performance you will be able to achieve out of yourself as you establish yourself in sim racing, as well as allowing your old brake pedal to become the clutch, turning it into a free pedal set as a byproduct of that new add-on. By comparison, the R5 wheelbase and pedals cannot be upgraded in steps in the same sense. They can only be replaced for better items entirely. There is a rudimentary brake performance kit for the R5 pedals, but I found it to be ineffective, better off skipping. You can replace the R5's SRP light pedals with Moza's full-featured SRP pedals, but that's €140 for a 2-pedal set. You could replace the R5 wheelbase with the more powerful R9, but that's €349 outlaid. You can sell off your old pedals and R5 base afterwards to recoup some of the cost, but it still requires that initial outlay, unless you're prepared to sell your soon-to-be redundant Moza kit first and be without a working setup whilst you wait for the new stuff to arrive. But that's your choice to make. Let's put it another way. Take a look at this graph that charts the upgrade path of the Fanatec CSL DD and Moza R5 respectively, rising with the amount of money spent, and you'll see how these upgrades flip the performance advantage between the two bundles pretty quickly. We start off with the base bundles themselves, and I'm using euro values from Fanatec and Moza's official sites here, rounded up to the nearest euro. We start with €419 for the R5, and €380 for the CSL DD 5Nm bundles. At this point, the R5 is the better performing bundle. Rising to €460, you now have enough for Fanatec's load cell brake pedal, which flips the advantage to the CSL DD and by a considerable margin. My race pace on this setup would smash that of the R5 at this stage without that load cell brake. It's only at the €558 level that I can afford to replace the R5's SRP light pedals with the SRP pedals with a load cell brake. Selling the now redundant SRP light pedals on eBay to offset that cost looks like it'd recoup around €80. So now we're sitting at around €478 after that cost spike and recouping it by selling it off second hand. That almost equalises the advantage. The CSL load cell brake is better than the SRP load cell brake, but let's call it a draw. However, at €560, I can now afford to add the Fanatec CSL DD Boost Kit to raise the power from 5Nm to 8Nm. At this cost level, the CSL DD easily outclasses the R5 in terms of force feedback power and fidelity. It is a clear cut above now. It's only at the €827 mark that I could afford the R9 wheelbase to replace the R5 to match and slightly exceed the CSL DD for power. Sell off the R5 wheelbase and reclaim roughly €210. That reduces the total cost to max out the Moza side to €617. Whereas to max out the CSL DD to pretty much similar spec, the total would be €560. That's a solid €50-60 difference in cost between the two, and it's more hassle and fuss to get there on the Moza side. My point is that the CSL DD is easier and cheaper to upgrade piece by piece as you go. You won't have to save up, buy the next step up and then recoup some of the difference selling the old kit. You're only adding to what you already have and nothing is spare. The R5 base bundle outperforms the CSL DD base bundle, but if you expect to upgrade over the coming months, you'll be glad you picked the CSL DD over the R5 as it will cost less money and time to shift up to that mid-level. Besides the bundles themselves, are there any other things that may sway you to Fanatec or Moza in the road ahead, because they both have unique strengths when it comes to accessories? Moza's wheels tend to be a little bit more expensive than Fanatec, but the accessories tend to be cheaper. Moza's H-shifter and handbrake, for example, are much cheaper than Fanatec's, so it does cost less to build a full car accessory setup with Moza than it does with Fanatec. However, Fanatec have some strong budget steering wheels to choose from, such as the CSL GT3 or F1 Esports wheel. Both of those are pretty good for the price, they're classic now. Moza has the trucking wheel as well, that's something Fanatec has zero response to. Most of you won't be into truck simulators, but if you are, then it's a pretty obvious choice. Again, this is all a consideration to make if you think you're going to be spending more in the future and which of the two look better to you. And this all leads me into my overall conclusion and advice. Both bundles are good. Both bundles are widely supported by almost all PC sim racing titles. Fanatec's one of the oldest names in the space. They have a slight edge when it comes to ease of use. But the main difference that will matter to you is in where the bundles start in terms of performance and where they end in terms of upgradability. If you are on a fairly strict budget but are planning to upgrade as your budget slowly allows, the CSL DD will permit you to upgrade sooner and at less cost. However, to receive that payoff of cheaper and easier upgrades, you will have to accept that at the initial base level, the CSL DD's force feedback will be weaker than the R5 until you add that boost kit. The R5 has the advantage at base level, so if you are locked to £400 with no wiggle room for quite some time, and you're going to be at the base level for the foreseeable future, the R5 is the better choice. Browse the accessories and wheels of either brand as well. Go with what looks better to you, what feels like the right choice, because both are competent, high-value bundles at a decent price. Thanks for watching. Any questions or confusion, then do please ask. If you've got any feedback or opinions to add to the conversation, add them in the comments. I am one person. Sim racing is full of persons. I want to know what you think newcomers might want to know. Don't forget to check out the video description for applicable links and info, and cheers again.